That's
Hey,
tells a lot about what's going on.
yeah, yeah. Hey, listeners. You're kind of coming in mid conversation because we just got to chit chat, and I'm like, oh shit, I should hit record. So I'm here with Alex Henry Foster. That's right? It's not
Yes, absolutely.
okay.
It's a good
Um,
start.
yeah. Well,
It's a
you
good
just like
start.
I was from Montreal. I'm like, oh my god, has it got like a French like pronunciation or something? I didn't ask ahead of
No,
time.
thanks to my
Um,
dad for that.
okay. So you were just saying, you where do you live?
Yeah, I'm from Montreal,
Yeah.
and right now we have like a studio in about like an hour from Montreal, and which is like a former Catholic church that we bought like maybe 10 years ago, and we transformed to a professional studio. And but most of the time, I will split between Virginia. My home is there. I'm living in the Highlands of
Okay.
Virginia, and Tanger in Morocco, where I have a hotel. Yeah, it's
Oh,
crazy.
damn. Like,
Yeah, I've been busy.
yeah, I guess so. Now I need a reason to go to Morocco and be like, hey man, I could use a
Well,
room.
absolutely. You need to come with you bring the whole podcast thing over
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah. It's funny, like when I was starting, so listeners, we started talking and like immediately, I feel like we hit it off pretty well. But we were kind of just chit-chatting and we are talking about how everything got started. And when I started this podcast, I was like very adamant. I'm like, I'm only gonna interview people if I can sit in the same room with them. And
Uh-huh.
then COVID happened, and I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Let's
um,
change the business plan.
yeah. So then we started interviewing everybody from all over the world, and I was just like, oh, it's not the best, but like you just get to talk to so many different people, and
Yeah.
we've been invited to so many cool places, and it's yeah. So it's I much prefer talking to someone when they're in the same room, but like it's just
Likewise,
you
I'm very
know
old school in that regard because you can, there's the sense. That's why every time I'm doing like interviews like that, and I'm very, very grateful to be on your show. And because of all the background, how you started, this is what we were basically talking about before um, recording. And it's community driven, and when
mhm.
when you need like a sense of the other person, and to there's nothing like laughing together in the room, so there's a bit like that human motion going on. So I totally agree with you, and I think that during lockdown, what I felt was how can I say, we were all eager to reconnect, so we needed so we kind of turned to technology to do that a little bit, but it just like increases like our like that profound desire and need to connect with others. And I think that through podcasts and what you do, like being so community driven, I mean, for me it makes total sense because it all goes back to that fundamental of yours, to
Yeah.
connect, to meet people, and to get that sense of a community as it grows, and you're growing through the same motion in a way. So I'm very impressed by what you did and what
And,
you're actually doing, actually.
thank you. And it's funny. It's when I'm not gonna lie. When I started, even considering this as a possible job, um, it was because I was working a crappy retail job and I hated it. And I'm like, I need
Mm-hmm.
to get out of here. And it never quite worked out the way I wanted it to. And then after a while, I would just kind of be like, whatever, I'm stuck at this crappy retail job. It is what it is. And then I was using Inebri-art as a way to just, I was looking at it as a way like, okay, I know these artists and I know business owners. I can probably get their art hung in these businesses. And then it just became anytime someone's like, hey, Andy, I have an idea. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. And they'd be like, well, you didn't hear the idea yet. I'd be like, I don't care. Let's do it. Like,
Yeah,
let's
let's
give it a
make it right.
try. Yeah, let's give it a try. And if it doesn't work, we pretend like it never happened. And
Yeah, exactly.
if it works great, then we look like geniuses.
Nobody's, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so it just it just keeps spiraling, like more and more people are calling us and reaching out and wanting
That's why I
yeah.
bet it's a bit more complicated and difficult to pretend that nothing happened, when you're trying something new now.
I get asked about so we made an attempt at a farmer's market last summer. it's like right. So there's a canal that separates the mainland from Cape Cod, the Cape Cod Canal, and we were just this side in a park that was like right next to the canal. It's beautiful. It's on this main drag that's fairly busy, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be perfect for a farmer's market." I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna crush. Everyone's gonna be here. Like this could be, if this goes off, this could be life changing money." And it sucked so hard. I have zero idea why. And so many people are like, "Oh, whatever happened at Buzzards Bay Farmers Market?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah. What?
Yeah,
Never
never heard
happened.
of it. Yeah, never heard of it. Yeah, it's just it was rough, but
But the
but you
cool,
don't know till you try.
yeah, and the cool thing, I guess, with like anything in life, even if you're still stuck in a job you don't like, I think that when you're a part of something bigger than yourself, then it creates a different type of motion in your own life, and you're a part of something that's so positive that suddenly all the elements that are so negatives around you or within the current of your own life kind of change. It changes it and transform your perspective about it. So that's why I was like so impressed about what you were doing, even though now I don't know, with hearing your story, I'm not that impressed anymore. I don't know, failures. You fell. I thought it was like home runs all the time,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. No, I said that Buzzards Bay thing didn't happen. Didn't you hear me?
now I like when you're rewriting a narrative. Now it makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, let's keep on going then.
So, well, this is about you. I mean, you were talking about how like being old school and community, and you know, you're not the first musician I've talked to from Montreal. It seems like there's a great music community up there, and just like really, really diverse. I talked to is it Teke up
Yeah,
there?
of course, yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's others that the Teke is the one that like just jumps to mind, but like you don't, at least in here in the States, I don't typically think of Montreal as a music city. You think Nashville, New York, LA, Seattle, if you're the 90s. But like, has Montreal always been like a music community? Like,
Oh, I would say yes, because I grew up going to like so many shows. I grew up in the very like poor kind of neighborhood, but my parents were rich enough to, in terms of how they were introducing me art and different things like that, that it made me discover the world in a different perspective. Even though my friends were going, well, my schoolmates were going to Europe for the summer.
mhm.
My traveling was through music and books and stuff like that. So that was also my what drove me to go to the local scene in Montreal, and there were like so many amazing bands, so ahead of the curve. So there's always something going on. When you're looking for something, you'll find it, and that's why every time I'm going on tour, my first stop will be like independent record shop and yeah, skateboarding shop, because this is where you'll know what's the real stuff is happening. So at the time in Montreal, it was phenomenal. It was a real community, and there were bands that were coming, because as we were talking, there's two main cultures here, and art is very political.
Mhm.
So you've got like the English one and the French Canadian one, but all of that is like blended with like so many other cultures, which is great. And for me, coming from a very poor neighborhood, the real culture was like hunger. We were like all looking well. We were all the same. We didn't care about how we looked. We didn't care about the language we were talking. We didn't care really about which god we were praying, or our parents were like praying too. So it was a different kind of environment. And I think that it was transcending in the music, it was transcending in all the communities, because it wasn't rare to see like some bands um, like putting in their music, even though it was like kind of like alternative rock at the time or punk rock. They were like, oh, suddenly you had like music like traditional music from Puerto Rico or places like that, or Spanish, and it
Hmm.
was so interesting and exciting as well.
Yeah.
So, and it was creating a community of its own, and the music was the reflect of that community. It wasn't like um being created in a way to become famous. It was just like so spontaneous. It was very organic. It was like really the expression of what was being lived in real time. So that's why I'm so happy that I've been able to be part of that, because it really shaped me into the person I am. And later on, and I was already like doing music with friends. Then there was like the new kind of wave of bands like with Arcade Fire, and it created some kind of a bubble. And suddenly it was people got more self conscious,
Yeah.
and then everybody got really ambitious. And when you're starting to become self-conscious and ambitious, so then rivalries will slowly start. So and communities will fragment themselves. So it was a bit weird. But me, I've never been, as an artist, I never been part of any of it. So I wasn't identifying myself to whatever current that was going on. For me, I was already like somewhere else in my life. So that's why now I think there's a new um, I hate to go into cliche, but I think that there's just like a new movement of different bands that are just like realizing that, well, we're all broke, we don't care,
Yeah.
and let's put everything together, and let's give it a shot. And the shot is not about being like having a career in that elusive world of like entertainment business, but just like, let's give it a shot to express what we live. And take it is it's a wonderful example with like Japanese involved and stuff like that. And you have like bands now that are expressing themselves in their own native language, and they're not shy to express their cultures anymore. So they don't have to mimic, like English Montreal vibe or the French Canadian one. They're just like going like full throttle, being themselves and expressing what they are, and being the reflection of their own communities, which is amazing, which
Yeah.
is art, in real time, rather than just like, okay, let's create something that will kind of look like a subpar of like Arcade Fire, and we might get signed.
Yeah.
So that was that kind of, and I guess you were talking about Seattle earlier or New York. I think that every scenes that were organic from the get go, you know, became something artificial, and you just like put like oxygen
Hmm.
on that scene to
Yeah.
keep on feeding the illusion that there's something going on.
It's
But
like
you
it's like
know,
that MTV effect is like
yeah, exactly.
as soon as you have something new, it becomes commercial.
Exactly. and
Yeah.
and, and for a long and nobody realized when you're in that in the middle of it, and you're still trying to make a name of yours, for yourself, and you're the only one that haven't realized that, oh, the parade has left the
Yeah.
city a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah.
You missed it, buddy. Sorry about that. Time to move on, or to go to another place. So yeah, so that was the environment where I grew up, and it was very rich in communities and humanity also, I would say.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about like organic and kind of finding, not to put words in you, but like finding your own voice. And it's something that I'm kind of, I feel like I struggle with in my art is I think every artist compares himself to, the guy sitting next to them, or, the big famous money making machine, whatever it happens to be. They always want to be that guy. And, I spent a huge portion of my life trying to draw like artists I like, as opposed to
Hmm.
kind of like finding my own thing. And then within the last, say, 2 years, I'm a super control freak, like especially when I'm drawing. And if it's not 100% perfect, I hate it. And so I've been trying to like slowly loosen up those controls. So I stopped drawing in pencil because I spent too much time erasing. So I'd only draw in ink because it kind of gives you that. Well, if it's wrong, there's nothing you like. You can't erase it. You just that's your
Exactly.
excuse. And in the past like year and a half,
Which
two
is
years,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've even taken a step further where I just do single line drawings where I put the pen down, I don't pick it up again.
Yeah, yeah,
Like if the proportion's not right, you're like, well, yeah, it's one line.
yeah.
I've built in these excuses for it not to be perfect, and I'm so much happier with the results because they
Yeah,
feel more organic and they look cool. And I'm
absolutely.
like, how it's so counterintuitive, but it just seems to and so many more people are like kind of being like, hey, I really like what you're doing now.
And that's I guess, about when you're comparing yourself to others, I think it's human nature, but also it's the construction of, how art, and I guess like probably it's the same in different spheres like business or whatever. But I think that you're you're trying to express yourself in a way, but then you want to be heard. And when there's so much rejection involved as well, when that that desire to be heard becomes something more of like, I want everybody to hear me because I want to be a rock star or something. So then
Yeah.
we're talking about two different things. And I think when you're just allowing yourself to be who you are, you will find your people. And when you find your people, for me, I believe that when you find your people, you find your purpose. So there's something going on in a community and everything. You will have your own voice as when you're being honest with yourself. But that's super tough because it's not about that much about art anymore. It's about your own personal journey.
Yeah.
So then it's just like, oh, makes sense, on paper. Just like, yeah, of course, just be honest. But
Mm-hmm.
then, that level of honesty, just like, never like, well, I'm honest about this, but how much do I want to expose myself for real? So there's so many
Yeah.
like self-doubting and questions that you're talking, insecurities, and it's normal. It's part of the process, I guess, because every artist, we're always in a place where we're just trying to rewire ourselves. Just like, okay, well, am I becoming the product of my own illusions, and then am I slowly becoming, what I always figured was the enemy? Am I becoming like ambitious now, or am I, suddenly compromising who I am, just a little bit, just let's
Yeah.
see if it might make a difference,
And
and
then like what point is that wrong? Is it wrong to like compromise a little bit to make a little bit of money? And
of course, well, but
it's
that's the
such a
beautiful
slippery slope.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. But that's the beautiful thing about it when you're just honest with yourself. You don't have to pretend, at first, because I was like for a long time, for 10 years, I was with a different band with all my friends. And, and we were just like, okay, we're really like DIY, we're like punk rock, and, we're anti this and that. And at some point, I just realized that it was also trying to emulate something else that we
Mm-hmm.
weren't really into, and then suddenly you realize that you need to live up to the level of like make believes that you kept on like showing off all the time, and you're feeling miserable. But when you're just honest, you can say, well, that's just for an example, when it's time to do like radio edits or like singles. And at first it was like, well, no, why would we do that? Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
that's the song, and this is integrity and whatever. And as you go, you're just like, well, it's great, and I'm very happy that my mother likes what I do, but in a way to reach like maybe more people, maybe we can like chop here and there without compromising the integrity of the song.
Yeah.
So as you go, you're just like, okay, but it's part of the process, and that's amazing. There's no shame into that. You're evolving as a person, therefore your art will evolve, and the way you're progressing in your adventure as well, because it's adventure. You're an artist. It's not like going to, well, some are going to school for that, but for us it was just like, well, if it's not an adventure, then what it is,
Yeah.
just like it's completely, doesn't make sense anymore. So when it becomes like a business, so you need to face yourself and just say, okay, well, do I like it? am I comfortable in that? So is that what I want to do? Does it reflect who I am? So, but it's just, again, it's part also of being like honest with yourself, and it's not that easy, especially when you're starting to have a bit of success and you're with your best friend. It's been like us with that other band, after like few years, like just taking that, as it was coming, and we weren't really serious, but suddenly like everything took off. And then we had to become a bit more serious. And when you 10 years after, you're just like, well, I'm not there anymore. This is not who I am, and I'm not very happy into it. I'm a bit miserable, even though now it's really going well. But you need to turn, you need to be honest with yourself, but you need to be honest with your friends that for them, just like, let's keep on going, we're on the roll. That's it,
Yeah.
let's keep it. Everything is great. And you're just like, well, yeah, but I don't feel that way anymore. And that's very tough. That's crazy because there's so many things involved, because it feels like you're betraying, your roots. It feels like you're betraying your friends, and you're betraying your fans or your songs or whatever. So it's always, I won't say complicated, but it's always challenging, should I say, to keep on evolving like that.
And I think a lot of it has to do with perspective too. Like when it's a gig and you're starting out and it's a pay to play where you have to sell a certain number of tickets in
Mm-hmm.
order to even get on stage, it's really easy to be like, we're going to do it our way, exactly our way, no compromise, blah, blah, blah. But then someone's paying you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, other people, not.
Of course, not
Yeah,
us.
right. But then you have someone being like, hey, we're going to pay you $15,000 to play tonight. Oh, but you have to play Wagon Wheel. And you're like, I mean, all right, whatever. Like, that's one song. You're gonna pay me 15 grand? Sure, I'll do one song for you. Like, and it's weird. It's like not selling out. You're just like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal to play one song.
And at the
To
same
to,
time,
to play
you
everything
just
else.
pretend.
Yeah,
You just can keep on pretending that it never happened.
right.
That's the magic trick for you guys. So I
Yeah,
guess,
Buzzards Bay never happened. That's it.
what? Nah, I never
Yeah,
played that.
I don't even know Wagon
It's
Wheel.
all
What
over
song is
the internet, man.
it?
It wasn't
I
us.
gotta
It's just
take that
like fake
website down.
news. I'm gonna call my lawyers. Oh yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
have any.
don't. I drink with one. He's my lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you guys are coming to New York soon, like 10 days.
Yeah, it's really trippy for me because we with my former band we played like a few times in America, but with my project, it's I've been playing so many times in Europe and Asia. So now for me to go back um, to America, it's very special. I had like a complete different perspective than when it was at the very beginning, when it was like, yeah, let's, we're special. Let's
Yeah.
conquer America. We're gonna make it. And New York always
And now
been
you're like, I don't know if I want to conquer America.
well, it
I'm like, I
seems a
get
bit
it. I
more.
get it.
It seems a bit more complicated than it
Yeah.
was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's see how we can fit in all that.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because the last gig we played with my former band was in New York. And it was a bit of a thing for me because when I was with my late father, massive music fan, art fan, artist. And so he was always telling me, he said, there's something about New York. And it's funny because he never been to New York, and he wasn't in a position where he was able to travel much and financially and whatnot. So, but the perspective he had was a bit romantic, a bit naive, but also very beautiful. So every time I'm going back to New York, it's always special to me because it brings back a bit of a sense of intimacy that it's really rooted with my father's relationship, and which was like with every relationship with your father, I guess, was a bit complicated, but it brings something very sentimental for me, and I'm very grateful, very thankful to go there. I've been like playing pretty much like we toured everywhere in the world, but just to go back and places like this, some places like that, I don't really care if it's the medicine, the Madison Square Garden, or like a big venue or
Yeah.
whatever. For me, is just the spirit of this that brings me back to moments where it was very significant, and that shaped me in the man that I am now, and the
Yeah.
artist that I became later. So it's very special for me to go back in New York.
Yeah. I love that. And I've had this conversation with a handful of other guests over the years. And I say we belong to the Dead Dad Club. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's so every year I have a tradition that I do to kind of honor his memory. So, like when you're in New York, do you have something specific that and if you don't want to share, you by all means. But is there like, do you have a tradition while you're there, or is it just the fact of being in New York that you kind of like
Yeah,
them on your mind?
I do understand the Dead Dad Club now,
It's a weird thing because it's like when you
but at the
said,
same time,
there it
It's
is.
beautiful as
Yeah.
well, and it's something meaningful. And yes, absolutely. For me, it comes in the simplest way, because my father was, even though he was very complex, but he was a simple man. So just for me to walk in the streets, and just to in busy streets where he might have been, if he had like would have had like the opportunity to go there. So and just to pretend, okay, if he, let's say, he was here now with me, what would it be for him to see that all the lights and all the clubs that he was talking about? And it's crazy when you think about it, because he was so knowledgeable about this place, but he never crossed the border.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it was so clear in his head. And when he was talking to me, I, every time I'm going to New York, I'm able to walk in some of those streets, and almost it changed over the years, of course, but I'm almost able to just envision those places he's talking about, because he was so clear about them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this club is there, this club is there. What about this, and what about that? And it was like so passionate. So when I'm doing my little run like this, I'm just like saying, okay, well, so this place was here, this place was, and it's probably not the case, but it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's just like it's completely, for a lot of people, it's just like complete nonsense. But
Right.
for me, it makes like all the sense in the world, because I'm revisiting, you know, places that were so meaningful for someone else, that it took upon himself to really transfer that,
Yeah.
within
And
me.
I think
So
it
that's
gives
a
you
bit
like
of
a
that.
better understanding of him too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it makes me, he was an artist in his own right, and he was struggling with depression for a long time, and alcoholism, before becoming a man of faith. And it's very complex. Sometimes you see, as a kid, you look at all the cliches and saying that, yeah, well, we're poor. My dad is like, like a drunk, and
Yeah.
suddenly, he's into Jesus and everything goes cool. It's just like, it's all those cliches. And you don't really, I never been good at just like going along with it. But now, as I'm rediscovering what he was telling me, and I'm seeing the world the way he was seeing it. So then I can understand a bit more of his psyche, way how he was processing things, and all elements that I never been able to talk with him, because he was
Yeah.
so, he was not that type of guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My father
So
wasn't either.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's very it's very special, and I'm understanding a whole lot about myself as well.
Yeah.
So that's quite trippy as well.
And I think you kind of get to a point where as you get older, you kind of forgive the things that made you really mad at them because you're just like, oh, this is really fucking hard.
Yeah,
Being a grown up sucks, you know?
exactly.
And so you're just like, oh yeah, like I get it now, and when you're a teenager, you're like you cannot understand that aspect
Yeah,
of it.
and it's funny because my we're now in the sentimental part of the show. I like it.
Yeah, yeah,
And what I really looking back and at our very difficult relationship, I realized that he never kind of shamed me with like expressions such as, "Oh, you'll see when you'll be older," or you don't understand what life, how hard life is,
yeah.
or things like that. He wasn't that type of guy. So for him, it was more important that I would like keep on dreaming and to keep on feeding my imagination. And it was like basically telling me like, well, nobody will do it for yourself. So if you want something, you have the possibility to do it, and you owe it to yourself. You don't have to impress anyone. You go your own way,
Hmm.
and this is it. It's your journey. We only
Yeah.
have one ticket, so you do it. So it was always like in that kind of motion, like, and as he was like talking about art and life and spirituality. I mean, the kind of thing that I heard or saw in our little shitty apartment, it was just like crazy. From the aliens are taking over to like years later to Jesus second coming. So
Yeah.
I guess there's like some similarities
Yeah.
somehow about like something is coming. But for him, he never got into that becoming religious. For him, it was more about, okay, what you need to define what you can see. You need all the intangibles and all those things. There's nothing absolute. So there's a lot of things like that really impacted me as a person, and later on as an artist, that I really owe him
Yeah.
like tremendously. And now I'm rediscovering him, because sometimes I have the utmost joy to still have my mother, and she's like a real badass. And sometimes I'm talking, and she's like, "Oh, you're talking like your father here." And just like, what?
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
she's like, what? What are you talking about? No, I'm not. You know,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. So it's
Yeah.
very it's very funny. It's moments like that that you need to appreciate in life. Those little things that are, that if you're paying just like a tiny bit attention, that makes a whole difference in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. My father was very blue collar. He ran a printing press. He worked construction. He was a janitor. And I was like, I want to be an artist. And at no point was he like, that's stupid. You can't make money. Have a backup plan. He's just like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you should do. Which is,
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, I know people whose kids are like, I want to, you know, be a graphic designer, which is a very common thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, you should have a backup plan. You can't rely on art to make a living. And you're like, you can totally do that. But yeah, so it's just really it never occurred to me at the time like how kind of crucial that he never kind of stepped on. Sorry, there's a
Wow, now it's spooky.
yeah, it's Halloween in here. There's a motion sensor. I thought I was
The
sitting right
light,
in
the
front of
light,
it. Just shut
the
off.
light went off, and now
Yeah,
Andy's glowing in my screen. I'm
yeah.
just like, whoa, Dad, are you talking? Do you want to talk to me? Are you
Yeah.
there?
Are you there? Hello? Um,
I know
but
why your show is so like popular.
we,
I'm
we we
sorry,
we
Andy.
have guests
I'm
from
sorry.
beyond. No, that's fine. That's fine. I
I'm very
love this stuff.
sorry.
No, but yeah, no, like
But
it never
don't,
occurred to
don't,
me how important it was that he did never diminished my dream, never, like you said, shamed me. Was just like, yeah, that's
but don't you
go.
think it's like a gift that was designed to bloom like way later for you only, by just being that presence, and like just telling you, yeah, you need to do whatever you want. And I think I think that we had like a bit of the same like upbringing, but my father going from one job to another was very tough. So there's two I guess there's two ways here to react as a father. It's just like, look at me, look how tough it is when you don't have, let's say, a degree or a job, profession, whatever. Or like we experienced, you and I, just like, I know what it is to work in very bad jobs and going out every morning, and just like needed to focus on my family as the purpose of why, I'm doing all those jobs that I don't
Hmm.
like, why I'm going along with that life that it's so, unfulfilling personally. So he had to grasp, I believe, um, other reasons to keep on going
Yeah.
rather than, and that was enough of a reason because he was a family man, even though he was like for a long time with alcohol and everything was like pretty messed up, but still his foundation was there and he always been uh, faithful to those values. That was the core of who he was as a man. So I think that's the gift. And at first, you don't really understand, especially because when he became a Christian, then he became like a cool dad and he
Yeah.
became like a nice guy. No more alcohol. He was cool. He was into like, let's talk about feelings and stuff. Me, I was a teenager at the time. I was like, I wasn't having it. Just like, look, man, just as
Yeah.
like you had your chance.
Call. Leave me
you had your
alone.
you had your chance, buddy. You beat it. So, but still, you can see this desire to just to feed that motion that was there within me, and I guess that was within you as well, and very positively, and for us to find our ways.
Yeah.
And after that, nothing goes according to plan if we do have one. But there's one thing you keep on believing in yourself, even when you don't believe in yourself, because it's there. It's
Yeah.
part of it's the fabric of who you are as a person, and basically the extension of what you're doing as an artist. Because now with the podcast and everything we were talking about before recording, I think it's the natural motion. It's art. What you're doing, it's human art.
Yeah.
It's some community art as you keep on doing your thing and rediscovering yourself and evolving through it as well. So that's the most beautiful thing because it was there all along, but it was awaiting for that breaking point where, as let's say like adults or when we became a bit more mature, if there's such a thing. So well, it depends, depends on
Yeah.
the day and the time of the time of that day. So it was there, and I think that's the most beautiful gift you can offer a kid, or you might share with someone that you really care about. And that's why I'm so grateful. And my only regret is the fact that I realized that so long after he passed. So that's the thing. I would have loved to share
Yeah.
this. That Alex, I would have liked to share that with my father, to have a moment with him, and just to say, well, let's go to Tokyo or let's go to New York. All right, let's do like having like moments like that where you can keep on feeding that, because everything kind of re-emerged from like something that was so uh, hidden within me, and suddenly I'm just like realizing things by talking with you, for example, or talking with others, or being like in the city, or just like sparks. It just like
Hmm.
sometimes just like doesn't make sense. It just like you're always followed by some kind of like a shadow that doesn't look like yourself but looks like the old man. I'm just like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about? What, you're still here? Give it, just like
Yeah.
give me some slack here. I'm living my life. You had your chance. Go away. You're in heaven now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But
And it's we're you're saying that your father was very old school, and mine was too. He was raised just outside of Boston. He had 11 brothers and sisters, which is ridiculous. And
the hard way.
yeah, so not a wealthy family. And he worked really hard for everything he had, but he was not the kind of guy to say I love you. You know,
Hmm.
I never doubted that he did, but he just never expressed it in any specific way. And so after his passing, it was might have been 2 years after, but you know, I was kind of like bummed out on the anniversary, and I'm like, I'm not gonna let his memory be a bad thing.
Hmm.
So on the anniversary of his death, every year I get together with a friend. I toast him with a shot.
Oh,
You
nice.
do his favorite drink, but I've had enough Southern Comfort. I don't like it. Um, so, but then I also send out a text message to everyone who's important to me
Oh,
and be
wow.
like, listen. And now it's like, hey, it's that time of year again. At the beginning, people are like calling me. They're like, are you
Are you
okay? Like,
okay?
worried I'm suicidal or something. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Why?
Suicidal alert.
Because they're just getting this random text message about how much I love them. And so then I just text everybody who's important to me. And that list has changed over, God, it'll be 21 years this December.
Wow, man.
And you know, it'd be like, you are super important to me. My life would not be where it is without you. And I love you. And I do it every December. And it's a really great, fun night now. And I
Yeah,
remember
it's
him, and I'm
beautiful,
like,
man.
hoist a drink to my dad and to those that you've lost. And it's become such a great thing over the course of, you know, 20 something years. And you know, and now my kids are old enough where I include them in that text message.
Oh,
And
sweet.
you know, it's like, so you may not know in March or May, but every December you know if I love you, you know. And that, to me, that's like the important thing, is like, you know, I don't want there to ever be misgivings or misunderstandings. And
Nice.
you know,
Well, that's beautiful. And it's funny because, sometimes you can victimize, you can become the victim of what you believe you didn't get. Oh, I
yeah.
never, my father never, told me I love you. And after that, you're taking that as an excuse to deal with your whatever behaviors. But I think that there's another way, which is like so beautiful, because what you're explaining is just like it's that reflection, and you're just like saying, well, there's many different ways now, especially that you're a father. There's many different ways to express I love you, but
Hmm.
there's nothing like saying I love you,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
can, because of what you went through, and instead of like trying to become a victim, you're just like thinking, it's empowering for you just to say, well, you know what, I understand that even better now, and you're sharing that, and it goes a long way, because all that list of friends and loved ones, it will be like, wait a minute, it's good to
Yeah.
know that, but it's a bit special. It's a tiny bit more, significant when someone, just like stop his life and tells you I love you, I
Yeah.
care about you, and you're important for me. And I think that's
And that's
it.
kind of my hope, is that like at least some of them will at that moment be like, oh, you know who I haven't talked to in a while, and pick up the phone and either call that person or text
Oh
them,
man,
or
that's
you
amazing.
know. So
Wow,
that's
I want to be on that list.
all right. I'll include you this December.
I'll be waiting. I'll be
Yeah.
waiting for that. You
All right.
better, you better be.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
it's beautiful because it's life, and
Yeah.
I think that, especially now, it's very depressing to see how divided we are on so many different levels. And I'm not only talking about politics and social issues, but I think life goes fast, and
Hmm.
as faster as like as ever. And I think because we want to have stuff, or because we want to do stuff, we kind of forget about all the beautiful things that are available, and that might be overlooked in time, just like that, just like giving a hug, just like having a moment with someone, and to make it like, real, because it's
Yeah.
life being like lived. But we're always projecting ourselves, just like when I'm gonna have money, or when I'll be able to, I'll be older, I'll do that, and this, I'll have more flexibility, or when I'll it's we're always projecting ourselves, because it's it's easier than facing the disappointment of life sometimes.
Yeah.
And when you just appreciate what you have, and I don't say that as fatalistic, just like, well, better, it's cool because this is what I have, so better, appreciate it. But it's more like, hey, just taking a moment, just like you said, about just telling someone, like a text, hey, I love you. I mean, it's you offering something that it's priceless to someone that can take that, and suddenly it might have such an impact in its life. Then it will change the course, not only, yeah, this day or this moment, but might change the course of like his whole life, because you
Yeah.
just realize, hey man, it's true. I don't have to, to be this and that, or I don't need to possess that, or I don't have to be seen like the way I would like to be seen, because someone sees me for who I am, and I'm someone that, that's worth being loved.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful, man. That's
And
so powerful.
and it's one of those things that, like, if you don't stop and, like that Ferris Bueller quote, if you don't stop looking around, life will pass you by. um but like, when I first got divorced from my ex-wife, I had like the shittiest apartment. I made very little money, and my friends were, if you look at that social media life, they were taking their kids to Disney, they were taking their
Hmm.
kids to this, they were, had their kids in karate, and I was like barely making ends meet,
Yeah.
and the ends weren't even really meeting, to be honest. Um, and so what I would do is I would buy a board game, because I
Hmm.
could drop like $25 on a board game, and then we could play that board game like every single weekend, and add a new board game once in a while. And when I look back at it, they were incredibly hard times for me, emotionally and financially, whatever. But I think because it was just me and my kids sitting there. One second. Hey, sorry, I'm recording. Sorry. Sorry.
It's so funny.
Um,
Every time we're like becoming
I
like
Yeah,
emotional and
yeah,
intimate, something happened. But
yeah,
and the lights came back, so that's good.
yeah. The he tripped the motion sensor. um, but yeah. So like, because of that, I think is why I'm so close with my kids. And like, you
Yeah,
couldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna be like super poor and struggle, and that's somehow gonna like make me close with my kids. Like, you don't really think about it that way,
of
but
course, of
now
course.
looking back, I don't think I would want it to be any other way.
And it's bless, bless your friends for being able to go to Disney World and all of that.
Oh yeah,
Great
yeah,
for them.
yeah,
And I think that's the most beautiful thing, again, when you're just saying like, well, you can appreciate other people's blessing, and at the same time you just like create your own universe.
yeah,
Then every Saturday night, when the kids were coming over, it was, going to Disney World,
yeah,
with dad,
yeah.
because it wasn't about entertainment, it was
Right.
about sharing a significant moment and creating a bit of an excuse through board games to chit chat and be
To talk and,
together.
yeah,
you
be
know
with each other. Yeah. So
because
now,
as much as I like Mickey Mouse, you don't
yeah,
it won't you'll have great memories and souvenirs, but I don't think that when you're growing up and you have like issues or you're questioning elements, I don't think it was, oh wow, when I went to Disney World, I had such an enlightenment that now I can
yeah,
go back and talk with Mickey,
yeah. I'm really
about
having
what
this.
I'm going. You know
Yeah,
what
I'm
I
having the
mean?
struggles in life. Let me call Pluto.
Well, they're going back to you because
Yeah,
you have that connection, and that's what means
yeah.
something at the end. Maybe it was boring for them, but as they will grow, they will realize, hey, my dad was pretty cool after all. You know,
They don't say I'm cool, but they always they call me for advice and stuff, and I'll take that as a win.
nice. Well, that's a major win.
Yeah, yeah. So now that the lights have come back on, I can look at my notes. So you guys are playing the 17th at the Racket. And your latest LP is, can you pronounce that? Kimio?
Kimio, yeah. So
Kimio?
that's
Okay.
so
And that came out in April.
yes, and I
Okay.
just released. I think like 2 weeks ago, I just released an instrumental record called "A Measure of Shape and Sounds." because it goes Himio, a measure of shape and sounds, goes with like like a bigger project, which goes with like a movie as well. So that will be released next year. So it's all part of like.
Oh, well, you
like
have to come on next year and talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, especially that now I'm on your list.
Yeah, we'll be doing shots in December.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this time has flown by, and that's my favorite interview. And when it just flies by and it just feels like
such a blessing,
we've known each other forever. So Alex, thank you so much. Where can people go to find out, tour dates, your music, all the PR stuff?
Very easy. alexhenryfoster.com. So it's very, very simple. And honestly, Andy, thank you so much. I never know what to expect, but I knew by who you are and what you're doing, I knew it would be like special for whatever reason, but I knew it, and I really want to thank you. It was very emotional, very
we got pretty deep on this one.
Yeah, man. It's just like, wow.
We didn't even argue about Star Wars or anything.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know if you're doing like the lights off trick every time, but that was perfect.
There's literally and I don't know why I'm like sitting directly, I'm almost underneath the motion sensor. It's so weird. Well,
it's crazy because with your background, the green thing, so then your face was glowing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I mean, that was like, wow.
I'd like to say it was on purpose, but I'm not that smart.
Well, we're talking about organic moments.
Yeah.
There you go, buddy. There you go. But thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for having me. And anytime, let's chat. It was very enlightening. And awesome. And very...
well, don't go anywhere because I want to exchange numbers so I can make sure you're on the list this year. And listeners, thank you again for listening. And we'll catch you guys again next week with someone else who I don't know yet because I'm not that well prepared. But we'll see you guys again next week.
Cheers.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.